All right, this is always one of my favorite videos of the year. I'm breaking down my top 5 picks for the best gaming mice of 2024, and I'll reveal my pick for mouse of the year. While all these picks excel at FPS gaming, only the first mouse on the list today has holes in the frame, exotic materials, and its chasing is super lightweight. The rest of these are all more normal mice, so no miniature fingertip-only mice, nothing that releases in a drop format. These picks are all easy to acquire, they're easy to return, they're built really well, and they excel at just gaming in general, so even if you're not a super sweaty FPS player, I've still got you covered. Before we get rolling today, I want to show you my new favorite accessory from my iPhone 16. This is the UNO Magnetic Wireless Power Bank 15 watt from Ugreen, and they're sponsoring this portion of today's video. This little power bank fits easily in my pocket and provides 15 watts of Qi 2 certified super magnetic fast charging in a portable solution that's tailor-made for iPhone users. It's very compact, but has an enormous 10,000 milliamp hour battery inside that can fully charge my iPhone 16 Pro up to 1.6 times. The magnet is super strong, and it's got a smart display with Ugreen's robot design to let me know charging status and the amount of power left on hand. Thanks to the smooth touch surface, I don't have to worry about it scuffing my phone or my case, and it's got a foldable kickstand making it perfect for the desk or for traveling. If you find yourself at your desk more than on the go, the Ugreen UNO Charger 100 watt is a compact fast charger disguised as a little robot desk toy. Just pop off his little boots and now you've got access to 100 watt charging on 2 of the 3 USB-C ports, and the additional USB-A port means you can charge up to 4 devices simultaneously. You can charge an iPhone 16 from 0 to 57% in just 30 minutes. The TFT Smart display shows different charging status with different emojis. We've got a GaN Infinity chip for faster charging in a smaller size, and their thermal guard system uses real-time temperature monitoring to help keep your devices safe. Ugreen's new UNO lineup not only has chargers, but power banks, hubs, and cables for the new iPhone. You can check out all Ugreen's Black Friday deals by clicking the link down in the description. Starting things off today in the number 5 spot is the Beast X Max from WL Mouse. This is the last size to release in their Beast X line. With a hand measurement of 10.5 by 20.5 centimeters, I usually go with the largest mouse frame I can get my hands on, but like a lot of Asian to US size conversions, their large feels a lot more like a medium to me in most mice. I do like how the dongle gets more insane the smaller you go in size. The elephant in the room is that this is nearly a 1-for-1 clone of the Final Mouse ULX in shape. This is of course done in magnesium, where the Final Mouse is in carbon composite. I don't generally even look at clone mice, but these are done really well. They come in a wild variety of color options, and at $139, these are much more affordable and generally a lot easier to get your hands on than a Final Mouse. The copies you're seeing today all came from my friends over at Max Gaming. For the price, you get a really decent amount of extras, including a hard shell case, a cable, 1000 hertz dongle, 8K dongle, a set of spot grips, and a couple full laser cut grip options. It also has dot feet installed, but they've got slightly larger feet for just the corners or full large feet for front and back. My version came with Omron optical switches, which sound and feel really good. I was actually surprised that these were opticals. It's usually really obvious, not only in feel, but definitely in sound. For its size, it's shockingly light at just over 43 grams, only 2 grams heavier than the Final Mouse Teric, which is painted carbon composite. For what this mouse is, which is like more holes than frame, it's actually built really well. I don't get any side flex or creak on this thing at all. I actually like the sides here better than I like Final Mouse because my thumb has a way of anchoring into one of these large openings on the sides. Like, it really sticks in there, so you get a really consistent grip with this. I'm not a huge fan of the side buttons. They're very small for a mouse frame this size, really close together, and they don't stick out from the body a lot. The biggest drawback for me with this mouse, at least on my copy, is when the triggers are depressed all the way, I get a lot of side play or side to side motion. Because this mouse is so light, I find myself using like a weird hybrid of claw and fingertip on this thing, but occasionally when action heats up in a lobby, I do find myself death gripping my mouse, and I can definitely feel these move under my fingers. My mini copy does this to a lot lesser extent. My medium copy doesn't do this at all, and none of my Final Mouse copies do this. Over the years, I've found my sweet spot for weight to be between 55 and 60 grams. When a mouse gets below 50 grams, it just doesn't feel as stable to me. I find myself thinking a lot about how I'm holding the mouse in game, and I just generally play worse. So this is the mouse I play with the least, but I wanted to include it today because I know there's a lot of people out there who might be curious about exotic materials or are constantly chasing lightweight, and they might be frustrated because they can't always just easily get a Final Mouse. I have to say that Final Mouse has better firmware, better battery life, and in most cases, if you get a perfect copy, better build quality, but I find the actual performance in game between these two to be very similar. Having a big mouse collection, I just naturally find myself moving back to mice that perform more consistently for me. Nonetheless, if you're looking for a not cheap, but cheaper alternative to experiment with hyperlight mice, these are a lot easier to get your hands on. A Zowie mouse showing up in the top 5 list has to make you wonder what year it is, but here we are. Once a titan of the mouse space, Zowie had basically gone into full-blown cryogenic hibernation, failing to even deliver a wireless mouse until like mid-2023 when they finally dropped this little ergo nugget, the ECCW. But in January of this year, they came back with the U2. This is the first new shape we've seen from Zowie since, what, the Divina series in 2018? It's a great shape too. It's low front height with a raised hump in the rear. That's usually a shape recipe that works very well for me, so you'll probably hear that a few times in today's list. What sets it apart is that it's fairly round and wide in the rear, but really narrow throughout the middle and into the front of the mouse. The sides of the shell all move in and down, so it's almost like all points on the frame converge at the bottom of the waist, like right where the grip is. This offers a ton of control no matter which direction you're swiping. It's unique in that it's a symmetrical shape, but not 100%. The area where your thumb rests actually goes into the frame a little bit more than the outside finger edge. This mouse is perfect for claw or relaxed claw grip. So it's classed as a medium frame mouse and weighs in right over 60 grams. And you get all the benefits of Zowie build quality, which is some of, if not outright the best in the industry. The only thing to be aware of if you're a big Zowie fan is that the scroll wheel has noticeably less tactility on the scroll than we've seen before. Zowie diehards may feel like this is less crisp overall, but a lot of people, myself included, have been asking for a softer scroll for years, so I'm a big fan of the move here. For $129.99, the package includes an extra set of skates, a plastic coated cable, a paracord style cable, a standard small dongle, and the large enhanced receiver that doubles as a charging dock. There's no software or drivers needed here. The clicks under mouse 1 and 2 are Huano mechanical switches. These sound and feel great. I feel like a lot of people slept on this mouse this year, primarily due to Zowie's recent reputation for being out of touch with the market, and second, when they did finally release a wireless mouse with a price point like this, it didn't offer 4K polling while a lot of their competitors did. The reasoning for that was twofold. Number one, Zowie focuses on professional esports, not your bedroom setup. So if they're going to release wireless, it has to be absolutely bulletproof, even when there's a ton of other wireless stuff happening around it. And two, I think Zowie felt, like a lot of us did, that 4K polling was just a gimmick used to sell mice. It only offers an extremely small positive performance benefit over 1000 hertz polling, and it comes with some real drawbacks. It absolutely cooks battery life. It can potentially cost you some FPS if your CPU isn't a beast, and it can even cause stuttering if the engine in your favorite game isn't optimized for 4K. Compared to other mice with 4K and 8K, this mouse at 1000 hertz is great, and I have a ton of hours on this thing. Rocket Jump Ninja just dropped a great video on this topic. I'll link this in the description, and I'm very sure he and I will have more to say on this topic in the weeks to come. So I've demonstrated before that there's a small but theoretically detectable latency decrease when moving from 1000 hertz to 2K, but after that, the benefit to input latency is nearly non-existent. Despite that, it's tough to compete for sales when the rest of the industry is focusing so hard on 4K and 8K polling, so Zowie did finally release some 4K models with their DW line, including the S2, which is a phenomenal shape. And they've just recently announced a 4K version of this mouse, which will have a slightly revised rear shape and smaller side buttons. I guess people were finding these large side buttons easy to accidentally actuate. I don't have that issue. I love these. They'll also offer a 4K version of the enhanced wireless receiver as a separate $20 add-on if you feel like you want to add that to your existing U2. I haven't got one yet, but when I do, I'll chalk this copy so I can put it on the XLAT and see how Zowie's 4K latency stacks up against the rest of the industry. So really solid offering from Zowie. I'm so happy to see them releasing competitive products into the market again. I'll be over here anxiously awaiting the larger S1 shape with their new wireless treatment. Coming in at number 3 is a mouse that looked like it was never gonna happen. This is the XM2W 4K from In-Game Gear. This mouse was severely delayed, and to make things right, anybody that still had their pre-order live as of May 1st not only got a full refund, but they got a voucher for a free copy of this mouse. Love to see that. This shape has been around for years now, and this is the first mouse I used that really felt like it fit me like a glove. You've probably seen this shape a lot this year, as their wired 8K version puts up best-in-class latency and has had people going back to a wired mouse and dusting off their cable bungees, which feels like a wild thing to say at the end of 2024. Shape-wise, we've got that same recipe here that works so well for me. So low front height, really pronounced hump that's pushed toward the rear of the mouse. This one weighs in right at 61 grams, so it's right in the sweet spot for me. One thing to be aware of is that it's really wide and round at the rear, so if you got a smaller hand, this may not be comfortable in your palm. This comes in at $129.99 US, and for that, you get a hard shell travel case, the 4K dongle, a nice flexible cable, and an additional set of skates that are larger than the ones that come pre-installed, and you get a skate for around the sensor. If you're running a glass pad, definitely use that center skate as I get some pretty audible scrape on my pad without it. And honestly, I would just swap to the larger glides right out of the box because these smaller glides that come pre-installed are really nothing to write home about. This comes in 4 different colors, and I can't really speak to the coating on the translucent models because that plastic material in general has a tendency to be a little soft and a little slippery, but the coating on this white model is fantastic. This release is really new, and occasionally it does still feel like it needs a little polish on the firmware. Not in the performance department. This thing feels incredible in-game, but I have had to repair this mouse to the dongle a couple times, and for whatever reason, the wireless doesn't function in my BIOS or my UEFI menus. It has to be wired to work in there. These are minor annoyances that I hope they smooth out quickly because from a shape and a hardware standpoint, this mouse has the potential to be one of the best. This really could have been a contender for the #1 spot today. The only reason why it placed where it did is because I just haven't used it long enough. By the time you see this video, I've really only been running this mouse for about 3 weeks. They made the decision to go with Kailh GX mechanical switches on this versus opticals. I like that decision. These sound and feel great. While it is true that optical switches are technically faster because they don't require a debounce delay, the main attraction for opticals is that they don't degrade over time and start to develop a double click like mechanical switches can. So I can't vouch for the long-term performance like I can with my top 2 picks because I just haven't used this mouse long enough yet. Nonetheless, we've been waiting for this mouse for a very long time, and Endgame Gear did not disappoint here. Build quality on my copy is top tier. I love the shape and the side buttons as much as I ever did. And I think the total package here feels good for what you're paying. If they can smooth out the last of those firmware issues and this thing holds up long term, I think this is a mouse you're going to be seeing a lot of. South Korean brand Pulsar Gaming Gears made a big splash in the mouse space with their first few releases, and they continue to lead the league when it comes to constantly releasing new products. It almost feels like it's never a good time to buy with them because chances are there's a newer, more refined version of whatever you just bought coming out in a couple months. Their X2H takes the #2 spot today, and this is the shape that was responsible for finally pulling me away from the MZ1 wireless that I mained for so long. Again, this is another low front height, skinny in the middle, fat in the rear type mouse. The biggest issue with Pulsar is that they usually have some big QC issue whenever they launch a new model, and then over time it's revised until it's close to perfect. The problem is these are stocked retail everywhere, so you don't really know what you're buying until you get it in hand. Luckily, from what I understand, Pulsar's customer service has been very good about this. In the case of the original X2H, it had an issue where the trigger on mouse 1 would get sticky if you hadn't depressed the trigger in a while, so your first click would always feel really weird. That was no longer an issue on the V2, and now we're on the V3 that has the newest sensor and 8K compatibility. This is priced at $99.95 for the 1000Hz version, making it the most affordable on the list today because the high-speed dongles are sold separately for $19.95. And I like that because you can opt in for the placebo if you want to, but you're not being charged extra for that if you're not interested. The version I use is a size 2 or medium. It weighs 53 grams. It's a solid shell except for the bottom plate. No issues with the build quality here at all. No creak, no flex. The triggers all feel good. The coating feels great. The scroll wheel feels nearly perfect to me. These are optical switches in here. They feel really good, but they sound like optical switches for sure. They do make an ES version of this mouse that's 11 grams heavier. It has one of the best scroll wheels in the business, and it's completely driverless. It includes a 4K wireless dongle, and all the settings are handled on the mouse on a little OLED screen hidden on the bottom. This version's priced at $130, and it's built like an absolute unit. Like, this feels noticeably better built in hand than the standard version. They also offer what I think is the world's first service where you can design your own Pulsar mouse from any shape and customize it however you want, from the internals, the battery size, the body colors, scroll wheel, etc. That starts at $150 and ships within about 30 days. Pulsar is just one of the most exciting companies to watch because they always have their foot on the gas. And the X2H is one of my favorite mice of all time. I've logged countless hours across a few different copies of this mouse, and I can recommend it with confidence now that they've had plenty of time to work out all the kinks. They make a few different sizes of everything, a handful of different shapes, tons of different colors, lots of limited editions, and I'm personally not an ergo shape fan, but if you are, they've got plenty of options there too. There's probably a mouse that's perfect for you somewhere in their catalog already, but I don't see them slowing down anytime soon. And that brings us to our #1 pick today. If you've been watching the channel at all this year, this probably isn't going to be a huge surprise. This is the Viper V3 Pro from Razer. This released back in April of this year, and I've used this exact copy like 90% of the time since even a few weeks before this was announced. This was kind of a controversial shape change from the Viper V2 Pro. I wasn't even too crazy about it when it originally launched in the Hyperspeed version, but throughout testing, I really grew to love this mouse. It is a little longer than my #2 and 3 picks and a bit narrower, but for me, the hump is in just the right place. I think the big thing with this mouse is that they just didn't do anything wrong. It doesn't really come up short in any department, so it's a really complete package. From a performance and design standpoint, I don't really have a criticism. Despite these being optical switches, these sound and feel really good. Scroll wheel feels really good. Side buttons are a good shape and size, good spacing between them. The actuation on them feels good. Sensor is solid. The weight comes in at 54 grams, so it's just right under that sweet spot for me, but it feels really balanced. In game, this feels both agile and stable in hand. But the really big thing is that I have anywhere from 350 to 400 hours on this exact copy, and it still looks and feels as good as when I took it out of the box, so this definitely passes the test for long-term testing. I still have the original feet on this mouse, which is crazy. It just performs, period. I've never felt the need to use the included grips for it. The coating feels fantastic. It has really strong battery life if you're not running in 4K or 8K, and there's even a mode in Synapse that allows this to run at 1000 Hz when you're on the desktop and then switches into your preferred polling rate when it detects a game running in full screen exclusive. And they've continued to make feature updates to this mouse throughout the year. Like there's now a mode in Synapse that allows for software correction if you're somebody that naturally holds their mouse at an angle versus straight on. But honestly, I haven't really paid a lot of attention to the updates. I don't think about this mouse a lot. I just use it, and I think that's what you really want out of your mouse. The only issue I have with this is the price at $159.99 because it ships with the 8K hyperpolling dongle. It would be nice if Razer had a SKU that didn't include this and it came in at a lower price, but purely from a product standpoint, they killed it with this. I've even seen criticism that they made it too similar to the G Pro Superlight shape, but I don't feel that in use at all. To this day, I still don't have a predictable, consistent grip with the G Pro Superlight, and I definitely do with this mouse. Do remember that the Hyperspeed version exists at only $70 if you like this shape. It weighs more and it's powered by replaceable batteries if you're somebody that doesn't mind weight and you're skeptical of the long-term reliability of non-replaceable batteries in wireless products. There's not much else to say. Razer knocked it out of the park with this. The Viper V3 Pro is my pick for Mouse of the Year 2024 and comes away with the highly prestigious Golden Beard Award. So that's my list. I realize that's not super varied in terms of style, but over time I figured out what works well for me, and I naturally gravitate toward mice that I play well with initially, not ones where I have to learn a new grip style. Nonetheless, these are all easy to acquire, and I feel like they're pretty safe picks that will benefit a wide range of players. When it comes to finding the right mouse for you, my best advice is to ignore anything that's too hyped up at the moment. Definitely avoid anything that comes out in a drop-only format. Buy from someplace with an easy return policy, then experiment with size, shape, and weight until you find something that complements your grip style. After that, focus in on improving your technique and your game sense. Nobody became a better mechanic by switching out their tools all the time. We'll be closing out this year with a few other top 5 videos so you can see everything that came out this year, and instead of watching a bunch of individual reviews, you can see where I landed, what I actually wound up using. We'll look at some Hall effect keyboards, we'll take a look at some high-end flagship wireless headsets, and we'll look at a list of monitors that don't cost $1,000, so stay tuned. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you all in the next one. Stay up.